Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present you Adamantium Golem. What is it? It's AMD 64 cores, so 3990X with 3090, and this is on quite a huge cooling. So this is 480 and 360 millimeters of radiators. What is it doing now? Well, as for now, this system is rendering. What is it rendering? Blender Barbershop. What kind of Blender Barbershop is it rendering? Well, it is rendering 8K format render. What are the settings? Well, the settings of it are quite high. How much wattage does it take? Well, now it takes 1000. Why does it take 1000 watt? Because the CPU is at 3.8 gigahertz, and the graphic card is also overclocked, and it's running at 80 and plus 800, so 2070 megahertz over 10,000 megahertz at VRAM, and it has 52 degrees Celsius. The CPU has about 77 degrees Celsius, and the render is right now running for 16 minutes, but it won't be much higher than that. So what can I say? He has a brother. Yeah, but anyway, so what I'm performing as a company is that I test really thoroughly and heavily for checking if every system is alright and if every system can render for a long time. So I'm running 4K and 8K renders at that kind of machines. I will show you what differences do I have at BIOS regulated water cooling, 49,000 almost, from 42, 44,000, and with 3.6 gigahertz I have 61 almost, 3.8 65 and a half, 4.0 gigahertz 69 almost, sometimes 69 and a half, it depends. So this is how this system goes. Yeah, well, it has 256 gigabytes of RAM, 3.2 gigahertz as you can see, and the timings are tightened, and so yeah, it is tested. Oh well, the difference is by 18 seconds to 15 seconds, almost 14 seconds at the edge. So in Corona, is it really very interesting? I don't know. I don't think so, because this this test is also very, let's say, old. It doesn't use AVX, which Corona now does. So I'm also testing in OCCT Enterprise. I have the full license, and you can see that I'm testing for any hardware mistakes. Well, if there's like one memory let's say fault, so one memory error, it sometimes is that when you unplug data USB, that this will occur, but in this those systems I do not have big problems. Well, you can see that if I had, like here, 3.8 gigahertz, and I was having 1.18 voltage, I had problems. So I had to switch to other voltage, and with other voltage I don't have problems. So memory problems, I will tell you, on Ryzen Threadripper 3264 cores is sometimes a fault of voltage that you are giving. Many people are giving too high voltage for those very selected chiplets, of course, and that's the problem. So you can see we have about 70 some degrees. The CPU is trying to hold up to very funny and very fast 3090, and it cannot hold on to, because the graphic card is in this system, so Cycle 6 is much faster, and we are saying that it is heavily faster. So I will show you one thing. If you take CPU and GPU, it will run overclocked like this. 4K render, it is 7 minutes 49 seconds. 7 minutes 49 seconds. But if you take also, but if you take only GPU in Cycle 6, that's the GPU from with no OC, 8 minutes 18 seconds. That's GPU with high OC, Core 100 and memory at 1000. 7 minutes 54 seconds. Is it nice to use in Cycle 6, use CPU? No, the system cannot use it properly. Okay, now let's go to the brother. So, bye bye, Adamantium Golem. Now say hello to the brother. That's Obsidian Golem. The same construction, same 3090, same everything. Everything is, as you can see, also on quick couple disconnect, and it is doing right the same. This CPU, despite having better thermals and slightly 2-3 degrees, is pushing VRM fans higher. It is regulated differently than this other one, but it is also regulated because it would be if it's let's say catched later in higher temperatures, the fans will go burst into high RPM, and it is not nice to hear that. So right now we are rendering again 8K render. As I said, it is inefficient way. It's just a way to test the ability of the cooling system, if it's okay to render at both systems. So yeah, it is performing well. So what can I say? This is just the twin brother, and this twin brother is doing nicely. Again, this one is having very similar test performed. You can see that 48,349 without overclocking, 64 at 3.8 gigahertz, but at standard power plan, 65 549 when tested again on a little bit higher current, 67 at 4 gigahertz with standard power plan, and 69 and a half thousand with one ASUS power plan. So yeah, the effectiveness of both stations is almost the same. So that's the thing. And it was the first one which I've made, so there's a lots of tests. And as you can see, the difference between them is like 44 minutes 20 in standard 4K. So without overclocking, and with overclocking you have 33 minutes 35 seconds at 3.8, at 4.0 with MOSFan at medium and one ASUS 33 minutes 3 seconds. So there were also the longer ones performed, and with the previous version of Blender I was performing 1 hour test. I also performed all the tests with 8K renders, as you can see. So you here have like at 4K and overclocking, 4 gigahertz overclocking, and now it's at GPU 1 hour 11 minutes. So it's like this. So everything is tested, and as always, OCCT and report from the tests. How does it perform? Does it do any let's say, does it have any faults? And at every overclocking profile it was tested, and it wasn't having any problems at any given overclocking. The profiles are almost the same, just a slight difference in the voltage for different let's say OC profiles. It is good to see how it scales. It really depends from the CPU sample, because it's funny, because some chiplets are sometimes worse, some others are better. Some people like to regulate those chiplets differently, but I do not. Why? Because sometimes something changed in the system or in the, let's say, driver, and if you have something that was stable fully for all the chiplets, then it will be stable. And sometimes pushing just higher, like 50 or 100 megahertz on one chiplet from 8 will cause you problems in future. So this really doesn't help that much. I said I'd say, if you have a very good cooling, very good system, just stay at the same level for all chiplets. It will save you some problems. For let's say sport overclocking, so esport overclocking, yes, you probably would go for different chiplets, different settings, but this is very tricky one. And also very high precision regulation had to be made in BIOS, and as you know, BIOS is a lot harder to regulate than Rhythm Master, and it's also not changeable on fly by the user. So if a user would like to have a lower, let's say, lower specs, or even go back to the settings of stock, oh, he can right now. But if you have that in the BIOS, you have only one option then. So that's the way those two guys works, and I hope You like it? I think the efficiency of these beasts is really, really high. And yeah, I like them. Have a nice day, and yeah, tell me, which one do you prefer? The black one with LEDs, or do you prefer the silver one with no LEDs? That's the question. You can tell me which is nicer. I truly don't know. Both are my children, so I like them. Okay, cheers, bye. Oh, and the cable management is like that.